something that you want to change about your life, if it's an easy thing to change, you would have changed it already. If it's difficult to change, it's very likely that it is part of your karma. And you have to understand karma properly in order to actually try to change it.
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Our guest today is a Buddhist life coach and former software engineer at Apple, Disney, and Foursquare. He left a decade-long engineering career to study under Buddhist monks and now coaches people through life's toughest patterns: procrastination, shame, overthinking, and the gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it. He's written over 1,300 essays on the topic and developed a set of formulas that map why people stay stuck, even when they desperately want to change. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming the Buddhist life coach, Billy Seol. Billy, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's very great to be here, and I can't wait to talk more about all the topics that I'm interested in talking about.
Yeah, I was so excited, when I know you are coming on the show because you have a very interesting story. So I would love to start with, of course, I believe this is a question that people ask you all the time. You had a successful career, or what many people would consider a dream career, working at Apple, Disney, and Foursquare. So what happened in your life that made you walk away from all that to study under Buddhist monks?
Yeah, I think a big motivator was just part of my personality. And before we even get into the job related stuff, personality wise, I have a very strong tendency to kind of like cling on to things. Maybe it's like the youngest child energy, like everything is mine kind of a thing. But I like to really cling on to things. Because of that, I learned later through Buddhism, but you kind of suffer a lot because when you cling on to things, life changes. Sometimes the things that you cling on to goes away. And what I noticed throughout my career is that, yes, I do have a good job by all measures, right? It's like a great career, and it's so great. A lot of people would kill to be in my position, but I also like it that much, and I'm
Mm.
clinging on to it so hard. And sometimes the position changes, or circumstances change, or more importantly, my perspective on it also changes, which is strange because if I'm the one clinging onto it, it would seem like I would have that perspective forever. But I am really invested into this project. I want this project to succeed. But at the same time, I'm kind of getting tired of it. And so this career is really great. This job is really great. I really want it. I really want to keep it. But at the same time, because of my personality, I get bored. And through this loop, I was really becoming unhappy. Every iteration of the loop, I was finding that, hey, what if I end up being disappointed by this new thing as well? And then once I kept seeing the pattern, I found myself getting really depressed because, oh man, what if I cling on to this and then this also turns out to be really disappointing? And throughout the solution finding process, I tried a lot of new things, and this is actually how I got into the field of life coaching in the first place. But even life coaching gave me, I mean, it's good, gave me a lot of new perspectives to employ. But I realized that there was something even deeper underneath, and I needed to learn the actual mechanism of happiness because I thought happiness comes from a great career, a great life. I thought, it comes from something specific that I can obtain. But I did try a lot of experimentation, and I found out there must be something missing. And the more I looked, the more I kind of got led into Buddhism, and then that's how I got interested in training under monks.
So where did you go to learn about Buddhism?
Yeah. Um, at first, I started listening to a lot of Dharma talks
Mm.
from very popular, famous monk in Korea who actually ended up being my one of my Buddhist teachers, the Venerable Bumyun Snim. And I was already kind of deep into life coaching at that point when I started listening to the Dharma talks. At first, the Dharma talks were actually kind of offensive to me because there's a lot of like big no-nos in the life coaching world that the monk would say with no reservation, right? In the traditional field of life coaching, we're all about like having a positive interaction and like making sure that we're all aligned to like what's good and like action over inaction and everything. But sometimes the monk would say things like, if you don't want to do it, just don't do it. And as a life coach, for me to say that to a paying client, that didn't really make any sense at all. And so that got me intrigued, right? And oh, I hate that person. And like, well, have you thought about that fact that it's your problem? Like saying it that bluntly to a paying client, I would never be able to imagine that. So I got really interested because I was kind of like what you might call rage baited. And what, how can you say that to another person? And then the more I looked into it, the more I realized, oh my God, there's a lot of truth to this. But there's only so much you can get from online Dharma talks that are recorded. So I was really interested in learning how to take this practice into my own hands. So I visited a Korean temple in New York City, Jogesa. And from there, I had an encounter with monk there, the Venerable Ingung Snim. And he gave me a it was a very small conversation, but he really outlined the path to personal enlightenment. And then I took that conversation to heart. And he was kind enough to introduce me to a teacher that I could work with in Los Angeles, which is where I live. And so I've been having conversations with Dr. Robert Buswell, who used to be a Korean monk, but he taught Buddhism at UCLA and now is retired. And then I got involved into other organizations, and then that's where I started under the Venerable Pomyosnim, who's the original Dharma talk giver. So that's sort of how I started my interactions with the monks. And then there's also a French temple that I visited, Gilsangsa, and the monk there, with the Venerable Hewan Sunim, he also gave me a lot of help in how to apply the Dharma in my life.
Wow, that is interesting. I didn't know there are so many monks and temples in USA, in Los Angeles. Of course, this is something that we can later come back to or revisit. But I want to talk about life coaching and what you're doing to help people today because you have done a lot of research. Obviously, you have done a lot of learning and writing and coaching. What patterns do you see over and over and over again in people who are stuck?
Yeah. In people who are stuck, the biggest generalization that I can safely make is that they have lost interest in their life. So we are mostly primed to follow good examples from life, right? Like, hey, if you generally do this, then your life will be good. A lot of these things do make sense, right? If you're gonna eat, you want to eat a lot of nutrients, diversify your nutrient portfolio, and then it makes you healthy. Sure, that's generally true. When you're exercising, you want to generally exercise all the moving parts of your body. Like you want to do strength, you want to do conditioning, you want to do mobility. Yes, those are good. And living in a capitalist world, it's generally true. Yes, I agree that you make a lot of money, your quality of life will be pretty good. Sure. I again generally accept that, if you get a higher education, then more opportunities open for you. Sure, I generally accept that, understand that. But it becomes a prescribed dogma. And so, because so many of these things are generally true, we start taking them as absolute truth and we just stop questioning them. I may be a software engineer, and again, which is really great, opens a lot of doors in life, but I may not be really happy just doing software engineering, right? And I'm not saying be a life coach or something like me. I'm what I'm saying is, what if your tendencies aren't just for life coaching, and you would actually be happier in an adjacent field related to software engineering, but it's the only thing that you've known how to do, and that's why you're there. Like, for you to figure out, like, what am I actually interested in? What do I actually like? You have to be kind of interested in your life. But we grow up listening to our teachers. We grow up listening to our parents. We grow up listening to the online discourse about, oh, this is the next best thing you can do. This is the up and coming best thing you can do. Because these generally tend to have good traits, you kind of stop questioning them after a while. And then it becomes too late, and you find yourself realizing one day when you look in the mirror, why am I living like this? Okay, I'm going to do something else. Let's start changing my life. But that requires you to go against the grain of society. And so that's uncomfortable. So you try that for a few days and then you come back to following the trend of what's right. And then again, a few weeks later, you look in the mirror and I'm like, what am I doing? It all comes from this sweeping generalization of there's no deeper interest in your life.
Okay. So that's very interesting when you talk about change. And this is something I believe most people struggle with, which is we want to change a habit, we want to change our thoughts, and that's just so difficult. And you have a change formula. This is one of the formulas that I want to talk to you about. Of course, there are others that we'll talk about later. Especially when I talk about in today's world, people like us, we are creating podcasts, people listen to it, and books and self-help content. They are over the internet, yet our lives don't seem to change even though we consume all this information, right? So according to your change formula, what does it really take to change our lives for the better?
Yeah. I put it into a formula because I could give people like a giant paragraph to read about like change and so on and so forth. But its formula just makes it really concise and it shows you the relationships between certain variables. I'm going to give a top down view and then dive deeper into it a little bit. So, the top down view is that the more you want to do something over the more you want to not do something, like basically, if the amount of you wanting to do something is higher than the amount of something you don't want to do, then you're gonna do it. And the opposite is true. If you really don't want to do something and you have very little desire to do it, then you're not gonna do it. So that's the formula simplified. And this is super obvious, right? So now let's get into the specifics of the formula. The formula is desire, which is I want to do something. There are good sides of doing this thing. There's benefits of doing this thing. That's what I quantify as the desire. And it's powered by, like, to the power of excitement. Like genuine deep belief that this is good for me and I'm gonna learn so much from it, and oh my god, this is gonna be so amazing. It's an exponent, and exponents are very, very, very powerful because it greatly increases the amount of the power that the number has, right? But it's divided by perfectionism. I want to do it well. I want to do it perfectly, which is interesting to me because perfectionism doesn't really eliminate the desire, but it's just so good at reducing the desire. because you kind of start focusing on execution instead of what actually needs to be done. And all of this number is subtracted by unwillingness. Like with everything, there's a part of you that wants to do it versus a part of you that doesn't want to do it. So, for example, I'm assuming that you enjoy doing podcasts, and that's why you're doing them so much, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, you do need to talk to, like, reach out to people, schedule things, and scheduling things with other busy people when you're busy is kind of hard, right? And you need to be on camera, and you need to, like, set an alarm clock to make sure that your guests are on time. You need to set up Riverside and so on and so forth. So those are the things I'm mentioning by unwillingness, because even if it's something you enjoy, it does require a bit of uncomfortableness. It does require some bit of, like, work. And we all generally have a bad relationship with work, right? And that is compounded by guilt and shame. Like, why am I so bad at this? Why can't I just accept this and do it? If I had just started this earlier, then it would have been easy. If I had more supportive parents. If I was born in America. So all these things really, really, really make the unwillingness heavy because it sabotages the attention. It takes the attention span away from the things that actually need to be done to fueling this cycle of guilt and shame and constantly feeling bad. And so that's like the 5 piece formula, right? So what's actually required to change? The thing is, all 5 of these variables are up to you to change. But because exponents are the most powerful things, you really want to think about, what am I genuinely excited about? And for you to find what you are excited about, you have to be genuinely interested in your life. Because what excites another person may not be exciting for me. When you are sufficiently excited about something, you can do anything. And that's a very general statement, and of course I can talk about the exceptions to that, but overall, desire that's amplified by a genuine drive of excitement. That is what's really going to be the driving change that's enough to overcome the power of habits.
Could you maybe give us an example of what it looks like in
Yeah, I actually recently did like a case study of this online. So let's dissect that example.
sure.
So somebody online is saying that they're really struggling in their job, right? And they've been struggling for quite a while. And they really want to, like, do something about their job, potentially, switch jobs or do something about their career, but they're just not finding the motivation to do so. And also, they don't really have a love life, and also, they don't really have a social life. So inside of them, they definitely want to go out and make friends and have some new romantic interests, but they just can't get themselves to move. And a quick particular detail is that they are dealing with grief. Their mother and a lot of family members and close people passed away in a short amount of time. And so with that, they're finding it very difficult to kind of like take initiative and move on and make some progress in their lives. Okay, so in this case, the desire to switch jobs, the desire to make friends, the desire to have romantic interests. So, like, I mean, nobody dislikes them, right? And of course, this person is having a miserable time. So, therefore, they have that desire. But you see, it's not really pronounced. What do I get when I get a better job? Yeah, if I can get a better job, then maybe I can get into a little bit of a better apartment because the commute right now is so long. And with another job, then I'm going to be able to, make some new connections. And from those connections, maybe I can also meet some social people as well. And okay. And when I move, I'm probably going to go into a different neighborhood, and I can go into, oh yeah, like, what neighborhood do I want to go into? Oh yeah, so maybe I could go into this neighborhood if I'm going to move. So these are things that you see that sort of compound the desire. But right now, the desire stops at, I just want to get a job. I don't know. I just want some friends. You see, like that's the difference between a desire that just is there at like low levels and then a desire that's like a high level. Like I want to get into this neighborhood, and then I want to potentially get a raise and a new promotion. Those things are important in life, right? Okay. Excitement is very hard to find in this particular scenario. Why? Because this person is actively dealing with grief, right? So grief is a very heavy topic. It's a time-taking process. So excitement is generally very low, and again, desire is very generally low. The good thing that this person has is perfectionism. Not much of it, right? Like there's nothing like I want to meet people really well, and I want to meet 10,000 people in the shortest amount of time, or I'm going to apply to 10 jobs in 2 days. It's not like that. So there's no perfectionism involved, which is I think is a good thing. Now let's look at unwillingness. I don't have the motivation. I'm sad, and my family members passed away, and I feel stuck. You see, these are things that feel so much heavier than I want a new job, and I know I should be meeting more people, right?
Yeah.
So unwillingness is a lot higher. Another, moving on to the guilt and the shame, the nice part is this person doesn't have a lot of guilt and shame. Why? Because if the person did have guilt and shame, it would look like this. It's my fault that I'm in this position. If I had performed better at my job, then I wouldn't be in this predicament. And if I had taken better care of my family, then they would still be alive, right? I don't see these kinds of things in this person's online post. So that's a good thing because that is not playing a factor. So now let's sum up the formula. Generally low desire, generally low excitement, subtracted by a great amount of unwillingness, a great amount of sadness, and a great amount of impediments. So mathematically speaking, it's like 5 minus 1,000. So you end up with negative 995. So it makes sense this person is not able to make progress, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what do we do about this?
Exactly.
Yeah, I told you that every part of this formula is configurable, right? Another one thing you could do is really specify what desire means for you. Like, okay, so yeah, sure, you want a different job, but what different job do you want? Like I could say, oh yeah, Joyan, I want to invite you to a event. You could be like, oh okay, sure, event from Billy, sounds interesting. But then I could say, I don't know, I got invited to the Oscars party or something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna invite you to Hollywood, and you're gonna go to the Oscars party with me. It's like suddenly it's like, whoa, it's very specific, right?
Yeah.
So when you're more specific about your desires, like what job do you really want, what projects do you really want to be working on, it can really help you grow the desire. And again, the excitement part comes from what you genuinely know about yourself. For example, like suppose that person is working in car industry. What they really really like is like less about cars but more about like the assembly. Then in that case, they can find the more assembly specific job. Like, whoa, I didn't even know that was an option. Okay, I'm very excited about that, right? The more they have a self interest in what excites them, then they can really work on that excitement portion. Perfectionism, I don't think you need to touch at all in this particular case. And unwillingness is, yeah, it's really sad, and you really don't want to do it, right? But at the same time, it's natural part of life, right? So what I'm trying to do here is going from, oh my god, I really don't want to do this, oh, to, I really don't want to do it, but guess I'll have to do it. You see, they're both I don't want to do it, but they have carry a very different energy, right? So when you suddenly give yourself the permission to feel all these things, it goes from this really giant dragging weight to something that's sort of a minor inconvenience. And it's a very powerful shift, right? But it's not just those 5 variables that can change. You can also change the action. So the action this person was particularly interested in is, I want to switch jobs. I want to, meet new friends. I want to have a romance, right? The action that I suggested for them is gently being together with grief. That's a completely different action, right? And being together with grief is something that is more likely to be done because when you're feeling sad about grief, you want to be able to digest what the person has meant to your life. Why do I feel this way because of this person's departure from this earth? It's like when grief is sabotaging your brain, it's literally your brain telling you, think more about this, please, let's sit with me, please, right? So it's going to be very easy compared to finding a job to just sit there and gently process the grief. So the big takeaway is not only are the 5 variables configurable, but you are allowed to change the action as well. And that is what really gives you a lot of that personal agency.
Thanks for breaking down the formula and explaining it in such detail. You often talk about, like, we know what to do but we don't do what we know. It's a similar saying, right? And again, like, I believe so many of us, we are smart, we know what to do, we are capable of doing it, yet we don't do it. And why is that? Which part of the formula is not working in that case?
Yeah, yeah. In that case, it's basically knowing how to ride a bike is very different from riding a bike, right? I like watching cooking shows. So when I watch cooking shows, I can tell how the ingredients are being prepared and like, yes, that's like good julienne onion, and oh yes, it's sautéed at the right temperature, and oh no, it wasn't deglazed properly. So I can take a look at that and just critique all I want, right? But doesn't mean I can cook like a Michelin star chef. I know what a good dim sum should look like, but doesn't mean I can make one. I can know a lot of things about, life. I can know a lot of things about Buddhism, but it's meaningless if I'm not actually happy. So I can be a PhD in Buddhism and still suffer. That's not the point to me. To me, it's living a happy life. Going back to your question, it's very important to be honestly identifying what is the A that I'm looking for, right? What's the action that I'm looking for? And the cross comparison that I would like for people to try is my intended action learning more about this, or is my intended action actually doing it? So a lot of us fall into a rabbit hole when we're particularly interested in a topic, right? And it makes it feel like if the more I know about this, the more I'll be able to do it easily. This already tells you perfectionism is kind of kicking in, right?
Right.
Like, why not do it the bad way first? Why not fumble along the way? Why not learn it the hard way? No, I don't want to. So the perfectionism for actually doing it grows and grows and grows, right? So we're working with 2 action formulas here. 1A is for learning, 1A is for doing. And the action for the perfectionism for the doing part keeps on growing because I don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
I want to do it right. I want to do it right the first time so I don't waste time. I want to do it as quickly as possible. So the more that grows, the first action, right, of learning more about it, the desire to learn more grows. The excitement of learning more grows. So you see, it's like 2 action formulas kind of playing at the same time. One for learning more about it and one for doing it. But as you compare the two, it's easy to see that it's so easy to grow the first action formula of learning because it doesn't really require a lot out of you compared to the action. But the action part, you want to do it well. You want to do it perfectly. To answer your question, It's the perfectionism portion generally. And there are some human traits of why this makes it so. In general, we are loss averse, which means more than we like gaining, we hate losing. So that human psychology quirk kicks in. And the second quirk is people generally don't like being wrong. So these two synergize with each other, and then it's a great catalyst for perfectionism, which just tends to make everything very, very difficult.
I love that. So how do we beat or overcome perfectionism? Because I'm one of them. I'm a perfectionist, and so I feel like my perfectionism is only keep on growing and growing to the point that I can't even. It takes me so long to do a simple task, right? So how do we overcome that?
Yeah, yeah. You really, really, really have to. This is one of those things where you just have to experience it, right? I could explain to you what my mom's kimchi tastes like, right? But until you actually eat it, you just can't. I mean, it lives in your imagination. And you know what? Like, I've had one of the foods that I haven't tried before last year was Laotian food, like food from Laos.
Okay.
And the thing is, nobody can really explain to me what that flavor profile is because I've never had that flavor profile before in my life. So somebody could do their best in explaining it to me, but I'm not gonna be able to articulate it. And I had Filipino halo halo for the first time this year. Again, halo halo, it's like shaved ice. Sure, I mean I've had shaved ice before, the Korean style, but I've never had halo halo. So before I have the halo halo, I can vaguely imagine what it's like, but I am not going to know what a halo halo tastes like before I have it, right? So same thing. So okay, so we talked about foods, but what is this thing that you have to experience? The thing that you have to experience is that failure actually is a lot more exciting than succeeding. Because failure is very simple and boring if you look at it from the perspective of success. Why? Because if you look at it from the perspective of success, you just failed. There's no nuance to it, there's no detail to it. You just failed if you look at it from the perspective of success. So, World Cup. Cabo Verde had a really, really great run, right? They were really like underdogs, but the goalkeeper just did an amazing job defending, and like there were a lot of hearts to this really new country country that's new to the World Cup, and everyone's like a national hero. Like there's a lot of that, but if we take all that away and just look at so who won? Who won? Oh, they lost. But no, it doesn't matter. They lost. So you see, looking at things from the perspective of success takes away all the color and the detail and the nuance and the stories, the human stories behind it, right? And it just reduces this great event to, oh yeah, Spain won the World Cup. And that's it. All the other teams just lost. That makes the World Cup very, very boring, right?
Yeah.
But failure, when you look at it from the perspective of stories and possibilities, it was their first World Cup, but they did this great. And now look at what opportunities for football players are going to have in Cabo Verde, and look at how many generations of children are inspired by it. They're going to pick up football, and look at how many other countries are inspired to be like them. Maybe our country can be like them in the next World Cup. And you see, one failure gives you so many opportunities to learn, right? So I may, catastrophically fumble this podcast in the next 5 minutes. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but that gives me more information about, oh, this is what happens when I do this. That's so interesting. Oh, I froze when I was talking into that interview. I was so nervous. Oh, I'm nervous. Oh, I never knew that about myself before. This situation happens and I find nervous. And when I get nervous, I tend to do this. Wow, why do I do that? So you see, When you're able to look at failure from this lens of, wow, failing is kind of exciting, then you become actually interested in learning a lot from your failures. But the nice thing is, you don't have to rely on failing into the future. I'm not saying, so today, starting today, go out and fail all the time. I'm not saying that. The really nice thing is, all of your past failures, they're ready for you to digest today. So if you're interested in your life and you're interested in your failures, you can sit down with yourself and start being astounded, start being fascinated by all of your past failures today. You're not required to do something new to fail in order to learn from this process. And when you do that, you find that your life is actually a lot more interesting than you think.
That's so mind blowing. It's the first time that I heard someone says, failure is exciting. I never see it that way, because my biggest fear is fear of failure, and I always see it as, yeah, devastating, right? To me, that's how it is. But yeah, I mean, thanks for that. Because I think I never done that, which is why I'm so afraid, right, to make mistake.
Yeah, we're always afraid of what we don't know, right? And are we afraid of dark or light? We're generally afraid of the dark. Are we afraid of environments that we're familiar with or unfamiliar with? We're generally fearful of unfamiliarity. So when we're afraid of failure, we're actually afraid of something that's unexplored inside of failure. But when you actually explore it, like, I can't, words don't do it justice. Like, you find your younger self all alone in the deep corner of your heart at the moment that they needed somebody else the most, and you're so lonely, and that part of you, that broken part of you, in sitting in that corner of your heart when you first failed, that part is sitting there. No one's gonna come for me. I waited this long and no one's gonna come for me. But as you reverse engineer your failure, in the present moment, you get to find yourself in that corner, and you get to hug, and you get to,
Yeah.
pat the head of your past self. You see, like, that's not something I can describe as exciting, and it does justice. It's a truly meaningful experience that really, really, really allows you to deeply love yourself as you are without needing to be more successful.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And I think I need to hear that today. Anyway, the last thing I want to talk to you about is karma, because it's one of the biggest topic, I would say, in Buddhism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about karma in a practical, because everything you talk about is so practical. You have formulas for everything, and I love your approach. So you talk about karma also in a practical rather than a mystical way. So you said that our lives are running on formulas that we didn't consciously write. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So in the earlier answers, I answered something like habits. Karma is just a bigger word for habits, but it's kind of like nuanced. And our simplistic version of karma is, I do good, I get good.
Yeah.
I do bad, I get bad. Sure, that that's a that's one way of looking at it. But now let me try to paint the whole picture. So, are you a right-handed person or a left-handed person?
Right-handed.
Okay, why?
I don't know why.
You just are, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing is, why do you need a primary hand? Do you have a primary foot?
Nope.
No, but why do you have a primary hand? Again, you don't know, right? So, like, you see, there's a lot of things that we just inherit without really questioning. Why speak English? Why do French people speak French? Why do Korean people speak Korean? They just kind of do, right? You see, tomorrow, are you likely to use your right hand or left hand?
Right hand.
Definitely, right? because it's how you've been, optimizing your life, right? Okay, tomorrow, are you likely to speak English or another language that you have never spoken before?
English.
Right? So it's this thing, but at the same time, right? When you go home, back to your parents' place, are you likely to be acting like a podcast host or your a daughter?
I wish I could like a podcast host.
Right,
But
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like I do all my dishes and I take all care of my trash and I take care of my home when I'm at home, right? But what do I do when I go to my parents' place? Just lounge around, right? I become a son, right? Even though I am a perfectly, adult human being. So my ex bosses that I worked for, when I see them today, I don't work from them anymore. But what am I likely to feel when I meet my boss on the street? It's gonna be a little bit jarring because I've never seen them in that context before, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is karma is very multi-layered.
Okay.
So some of it is physical. Do you chew with the what part of your mouth do you chew with? Again, that's a physical karma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of your karma is going to be biological, like your parents. You inherit certain qualities and traits from your parents, right? Certain karma is going to be physical and like psychological. Some parts of it is going to be metaphysical and meta, like it's going to be cultural, right? Some part of your karma is going to be bound to your humanhood, like because you are a human being. Some part of your karma is going to be biological because you're a biological being. Some part of your karma is going to be like a terrestrial because you live on the planet Earth. So, when I say changing your life is ultimately learning how to understand and work with karma, you have to understand that karma is much, 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 much bigger than you. Generations and generations of human history and familial history and biological history versus you as one individual. But the thing is, you don't need to change everything about your karma, right? If I have alcoholism and I'm prone to alcohol, is my mom or dad likely to drink or not drink?
Drink.
Drink, right? But sometimes it's the opposite. Mom and dad are so opposed to drinking.
Right.
If I ever see you with a drink, I'm gonna disown you and I'm just gonna take you out of the family name. And that kind of becomes like, whoa, like, why is mom and dad so sensitive about alcohol? Like, now that actually makes me want to try it more. And then you try it, it's like, it's not even that bad. What? It's kind of great. And then it starts becoming alcoholic, right? The mom and dad, that generation, why are they that opposed to alcohol? Are their parents likely to be influenced by alcohol or not influenced by alcohol?
It could be both ways now, it could be either way. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, do you care about, like, for example, like a really mundane topic like birds? Do you care? Like, do you care about what bird you're gonna see today?
No.
No, right? So you see, why is a topic like birds so mundane, but why is like topic like alcohol so sensitive in certain things? It's because we mark certain things as good or bad so significantly. When we have an alcoholic parent, sometimes we inherit it directly. Like my mom and dad's an alcoholic, so I also become an alcoholic. But sometimes it becomes a counterweight. Like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be my parents. And then so on the opposite end, they are completely opposed to alcohol, but it's still the same thing as reacting to alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a chain reaction. So the next generation of children can also be super against alcohol, or they become so affinity to alcohol because they're so counterweight to that. Regardless of whether you're strongly anti-alcohol or like an actual alcoholic, the one thing remaining the same is your life is still controlled by this idea of alcohol. That's the karma of alcohol, right? So, in order to change that, you don't need to change your left-handedness, right-handedness. You don't need to change your language. You don't have to change your, other things to deal with that. You just have to understand something that you want to change about your life. If it's an easy thing to change, you would have changed it already. If it's difficult to change, it's very likely that it is part of your karma. And you have to understand karma properly in order to actually try to change it. So that's the bigger explanation of karma, that it's meant to be bigger than you. Of course, it's meant to be bigger than you. So to change it, there's like two ways. Number one, have a deep, 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 deep unconscious shift, like a life altering moment, like a near death experience. That way, you change in one instant. Or sustained practice over time with intention. So the pros and cons of each. Pro of approach number one, you don't need to do anything. It happens in an instant. But the big con of approach number one is you can't control it. Like, you can't voluntarily give yourself a near-death experience. Approach two, the pro of approach two, it's very reliable. I didn't say it's easy, but it's very reliable. You can do it when you set your mind to. Con of approach number two, it's likely that you're going to fall back into karma because, again, karma is just a lot bigger than you. And it will take time for you to notice the changes. But the nice thing is, sometimes you meet the deep unconscious shift during your everyday practice. Sometimes, in the moment you least expect it, you have that deep unconscious shift. But whether you get the change that you want or not, I think developing your ability to practice, the approach number two, is a generally good skill to have. And that's why I advocate for practice so much rather than coaching.
Okay.
The goal of my life coaching is to graduate you from coaching so that you become a practitioner of your life.
Okay, I practice about what? What do we do
Yeah,
to practice? Yeah.
yeah. So practice is a general term that I throw around a lot, right? So practice is kind of I say it in two kind of nuances. I want to practice happiness. So I don't want to be a person who knows about happiness. I want to exercise. I want to perform. I want to practice happiness. I want to be happiness. So that's the first sense in which I say practice. I want my life to embody a certain principle that I would like to have, right? And the second nuance of practice is there are certain activities that I do, right? In order for me to, cultivate my change.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to learn French, then that means I need to practice my French, right? So I may join a conversation group. I may do a lot of practice, questions. But the practice that I do falls with three requirements. It is voluntary. I do it because I want to, not because Joyan is asking me to, or my mom is asking me to, or my wife is asking me to. I do it because I want to. Number two, it has to be challenging. If it's too easy, it doesn't mean anything. If my practice for French is saying hello 100 times, good, I'm done with my French practice for today. Am I going to improve? Not really, right? So it has to be challenging. Number three, it has to be humanly possible. So if my French practice is solving 100 books every day, I'm going to be disappointed all the time. And I'm going to feel defeated and I'm going to stop doing it. So voluntary, humanly possible challenge is what I mean by practice. So regardless of what your domain is, what you're trying to change, if you're trying to quit drinking, right? It has to be voluntary. You have to do something voluntary. You have to do something challenging, and you have to do something humanly possible instead of drinking. So what is that going to mean for you? So for example, Like instead of picking up a drink, you are going, every time you feel like taking a drink, you are going to do 10 push-ups or something similar, something that's humanly possible, but at the same time still challenging to you. That way, you're replacing that habit of alcohol into something else that brings you back into your mind, your presence, right? And if you're trying to, like not be angry, again, voluntary. I want to not be angry. Therefore, every time I feel angry, I'm going to do something humanly possible and challenging. Like I'm, instead of, being angry at you, I'm going to take a 30-minute walk. So again, that's a thing you could do. But in general, there's a general practice that my Buddhist community does, and it's waking up at 5 a.m., doing 108 bows, and then meditating every day. So I've been doing that for the past 3 years, every day without weekends or holidays. Without, even when I'm traveling, I'm waking up at 5 and doing 108 bows. I do them at the airport. This is a generally very challenging but humanly possible activity. Because it's so general, I can apply this to anything that I want to do. I already developed a lot of inner strength through my 108 bow practice. So when I encounter a new situation that would usually stress me out, I'm able to connect to myself like, oh, I've been stressed before. Oh, I'm noticing that I'm feeling stressed. But let me actually look at what's happening right now. Oh, this is happening. Okay, let me, instead of like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Because when I'm in that second state, what's gonna take over naturally? My karma. When I'm in a frazzled state, I'm more likely to act in the way that I always have. The big point is not being frazzled. And in order to not be frazzled, you develop a presence of mind. And how do you develop the presence of mind? Through practice. And what do I mean by practice? Voluntary, humanly possible challenges. And do I mean it, do that once and call it a day? No, I say sustained over time, unless you have a big unconscious shift that just ultimately, like, instantly changes your life, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big picture.
I love that. Thank you so much again for sharing so generously. I believe when we practice enough for long enough, deep enough, the shift will happen eventually, right? So yeah, I mean, I can talk to you for hours. This is so great. This is so amazing. I mean, thank you so much for sharing so abundantly with us today. Now, tell my people if they want to learn more about what you do, or if they want to have a coaching session with you. I mean, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, my website, billyseol.com, contains a lot of information about me, my karmic formula system, and all the different ways that you can actually experience this work online. I mean, of course, I would love to talk to you and see you, and but the thing is, I think what's more important is you have the experience of what I talked about. And I developed online experiences for you so that you can log in and practice writing. You can look at the questions that I have prepared for you, and you can really sit with them and then explore. And they're all curated towards the action formula. So if you're procrastinating on something, just hop on to billyseol.com and then you'll be able to explore a lot of things related to action.
Great. I will put all your links and resources in the show note below. So guys, if this, I know you love this episode because you are listening to the very end. And if this episode resonated with you, follow Billy, check out his website, and thank him for coming to our show today, sharing his wisdom. And if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another episode coming to you every Wednesday. Thanks for listening, and I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joyan podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and take Find Joy Joyan _podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.